She cheated on you first, right?
So I have to cheat on her?
Please, we could try again. You're a good guy, and you're a great husband. And that is why I have the perfect thing for you. We're here for the special. Trust me, it is not what you think.
Hello, my friends. We review 143. I'm going to take advantage of this interesting light situation I have going on at the moment to talk about a movie I saw on streaming on Tubi. Tubi really is the place to find extreme films to stream for free. The whole site's free. You just have to sign up. No, I don't work for them. But it is amazing some of the stuff I've seen on there, and I've reviewed quite a lot of it on here actually. Some of it very, very extreme. So I'm overusing that word, kind of like some of our politicians do these days. So let me say this at the outset. This is probably the most disturbing film that I've seen in quite a while. I think it would be ridiculous to some people, but then I think it would be disturbing to a lot of people, especially men. It has a lot to say about men and things that, like uncomfortable truths about our sexual proclivities and about women that maybe we don't want to face, maybe we don't know that we're exhibiting these qualities. Maybe we don't understand what we're acting out. So yeah, it's pretty deep and heavy, but it's a thriller. It's a body horror film, and I wasn't sure it would pay off, but it did. It went all the way to the finish line. So if you haven't seen it, spoilers galore. Go no further. So it's about this cat named Jerry, and I don't know any of these actors, by the way, their names. I know Harrison Smith is the name of the director. I have not, researched his CV or anything to see what else he's done, though I am now curious. I saw it floating around streaming the last couple of years, and I think it was recommended to me a couple of times. Someone mentioned it in a group, but I never got the plot. So the plot that's described on the Tubi page is the basic. I'll paraphrase because I'm not reading it, believe it or not. But I'll fill in the characters' names. So Jerry thinks his wife Lisa is having an affair. Jerry works for this firm business doing who knows what. I don't know what they do. It's not really important to the plot. Insurance, maybe, I don't know. One of his coworkers is also his best friend named Mike. So Mike tells him, "Hey, I'm way expanding on Tubi's little write up, but anyway. Mike tells him, "Hey, man, basically what's good for the goose, whatever. You need to, apply some karma here and go have an affair. And go sleep with a woman here." And he's like, "No, it's not my style. I don't want to do that." Lisa is, planning Jerry's upcoming birthday party. She's been talking to this dude a lot, and Jerry just kind of assumes they're fucking, his own insecurities there. No real evidence one way or another. But Mike's like, "Yeah, man, just get laid, man. It'll make you feel better, or make you feel like you're even in the score." So he takes him to this place called Madame Zora's, which it's a front for a brothel, but the front is a fortune-telling shop. And this ancient Eastern European woman named, well, not ancient, they said she's 72, named, I forgot, they tell her real name, but Lady Zora. She runs the place, and she has an Eastern European kind of bodyguard, gopher, all-purpose guy there Yvonne. Yvonne is his name. So um, they meet some of the girls. Jerry's still kind of, I don't know about this. I'm kind of shy, you know. There's one particular girl who um, named Sin, Syn, who's supposed to be, you know, the best. And then Mike drops this thing about, you know, you might want to try the special. So, you know, the special is what it implies in advertising, you know, the special of the day, the special of the house, as being the house of the rising sun. And uh, he's like, "What's that?" Mike's like, "It's unbelievable, man. I've had it. It's different." He's like, "Well, what? Who is she? What's it about?" And he's like, "Hey, man, do you want to do it?" And he's like, "Okay." So he pays up, and he goes to this room. There's no one there that he can discern. Over on one side of the wall, there's a box that is black. It's about this big, maybe about this big, and painted in white letters on the front of it are the words "Stick it in here," with an arrow pointing to a perfect circle toward the bottom of the box, the front of the box. So, you know, this is like some kind of glory hole shit, right? Except where's the woman? I mean, what is a magic trick? You know, I'm asking the question, some of which Jerry does ask himself, and some of which he should be asking, or I'd be asking. Um, I'd probably be just leaving at that point because if I place my phallus into that box, I might not get it back. So this seems extremely ridiculous. I mean, if you know someone's on the other end and you're into that glory hole stuff, then go for it. But you know, what I'm saying is there's no evidence. So what the hell could be in the box? You know, a dimensional tunnel to an other dimensional, otherworldly, invisible, intangible woman with a vagina, which is interfacing with the hole in the box. And that actually crossed my mind later when they started talking about how Madame Zora has studied the occult very closely her whole life. So I thought it's something to do with magic, something to do with the occult, supernatural. Because otherwise, how could this function? The laws of physics would prevent it. So, like a genius, he does it, and he experiences the most intense sexual ecstasy, or maybe ecstasy of any kind, in his life. This guy's a good actor. He's This is an extreme horror film, and it's one that deals with sexual horror, sexual violence, and as such, I would class it in the general subgenre, if it is one, with a Serbian film. That's why I find it so disturbing. However, in the Serbian film, Milos, the main character, does all this same stuff, fucks all these different people into a corpse and all of his own son, and spoilers, and not knowing it's his own son, and the actor's totally naked, simulating all this. It is simulating, and this guy's got his clothes on. So you're depending on your imagination. They're not going to show his dick full on in this movie. And he's just the same level as the guy who plays Milos. He perfectly captures, I know, a lot of the feelings and expressions and probably extremely goofy facial tics that I exhibit when I'm in a sexual ecstasy kind of mode or an orgasmic mode. It's probably just ridiculous to behold, but intense, and he expresses it, whereas Milos is this kind of, manic, primal, animalistic, feral, atavistic condition. This guy's just more like a transcendental, his physical being is going to another plane. Now, he doesn't seem like a particularly religious or spiritual guy, so I can't liken it directly to a mystical ecstasy. some spiritual minded folk over the centuries have reported to have experienced as being akin to sexual ecstasy. But I get it. I mean, I've seen glimpses of both in my life. I mean, experienced glimpses of both. But so I'm thinking this is a guy less thinking into this, experiencing all of it at once, much deeper than I have, or maybe anyone ever will. And I'm wondering why. So I'm thinking there's got to be some kind of orifice, something stimulating him in that box. Anyway, he's knocked out. And he starts telling, when they went there, Mike put a hood over his head because he's like, if I don't hide where their location is, you'll be wanting to go every day, man, and your whole life will fall apart. Well, sure enough, he begs Mike to show him. Let's go back, man. Come on. Just one more time. And so, Mike's like, hell no. We gradually meet Lisa, Jerry's wife, and she's played by a woman who kind of resembles an actress. I can't remember her name, a Scream Queen. It also kind of resembles an artist girl that I actually know. But she doesn't, even though she has that kind of look, she doesn't act, glamorous or slutty or seductive. She's all dressed up, except for one shot later, and she's classy. She's kind of quiet and worried, and feels like Jerry's getting distant from her, and probably he has been pushing her away, sensing to him that she's having an affair. So whenever that seed is planted, that generally tends to happen. And if one of the partners is empathetic or empathic with the other partner, then they will pick up on that. And they'll wonder what is the disruption in the field, so to speak, between them. Now, mind you, I'm saying all this, none of this is being said in this film. There are no characters, even Madame Zora, who go into this much depth. But that's what I like about it. I think the people who wrote it and made it did intend this depth to be there. And coded it in kind of symbolic terms all through the movie. Sometimes it's blatant, and sometimes it's on the nose, but sometimes it's definitely worked in there to the point where you can extract it and go, okay, this means this. And this is bad because this is like how real men feel sometimes. Some real men feel all the time. Maybe they're not real men. So he kind of manages to swindle somebody who's in contact with the fortune tellers by some information he found online, and he finally finds her location, and she won't let him in. And she'd already also said she'd seen something in his eyes, and so did the character Sin, the prostitute. Again, this is something that is never explained, but you can read it. When you see the ending, you can start thinking about it, and it's disturbing. So he manages to kind of barge his way in. He's going to give her like twice the money and all this kind of stuff. And it doesn't go well. He loses his mind. She falls over, and he puts his foot on her neck and basically breaks it. And it's like he's become a different person. So that obsession is in his eyes. This is just raw sexual obsession. He's got to feel that feeling again, an addiction. Instantly addicted, which is why Mike told him not to do it. So I think here you have a classic setup that's like a classic kind of horror short story, almost like something forbidden and something that they're warned away from, but there's the allure, and then you go into it, and then, your intentions might be good, and then you kind of slip, and you do something bad, and then it gets worse, worse, and worse until it's beyond the pale. And the structure of this and the way it's played out is very classical in nature, in my opinion. I think it succeeds very well to be an indie, low budget horror film, but it looks very professional. Production values are great. Not to the level of a Serbian film, but I think a Serbian film was actually shot on film. I think this was probably shot on high end video, but it really looks like film for the most part. The acting is very rarely rough around the edges, and that's only with the very, very minor characters. Uh, the guy who plays Jerry is completely convincing in a part that would be difficult. A part that's a kind of a setup that's similar, I can think of, would be Frank Henenlotter's um, Brain Damage, where you have Rick Hurst, who's a really great actor, going through all these ranges of weird emotions as he becomes enslaved to this being Aylmer, who's kind of using him, like a parasite, and yeah, and he ends up killing people and sucking like energy from their brain or whatever. But he's also a decent guy. He's like fractured, He does some outrageous shit. I mean, that's a great movie. That's one I really would like to review one day on the show, because I have the like the super duper deluxe Arrow remastering. I also have the one of Bad Taste. Brain Damage is really top notch presentation. Great movie. Again, body horror, and this is absolutely in that body horror bigger subgenre. The sexual part specific isn't in all body horror, and it's rare. It's not always graphic, So Jerry steals the box. He takes it to a hotel. He rents a hotel week by week and has some byplay with the owner, who's basically a sleazebag who hosts all kinds of weirdos, and eventually tells Jerry he doesn't seem like the crackheads and killers on the loose, whores that he's used to dealing with. That actor, he's okay. I mean, his character's trying to be funny in a acerbic way. Of course, Jerry has zero tolerance for that as the movie goes on. In the beginning, he's a little like kind of intimidated by like, what do you mean, He's a newbie to all this. And he gets into the room and goes at it again. And oh my goodness. So anyway, after recurrence of this, he explores it with his fingers. He starts fingering the orifice, and there's like a fluid, a kind of a white fluid. It's kind of sticky. It comes out. I wouldn't say it's anything like vaginal fluid, or I wouldn't say it's anything like semen exactly, but it's meant to evoke those things, obviously. And I'm gonna put this on pause really quick. I was remastering on my video editor program a video I'm going to post before this one, and it stopped exporting and started playing. So the introduction, that was the voice you heard. I couldn't figure out until I realized whose voice it was. So I didn't want to ruin this video or spoil that one if you're watching this first. So he's experimenting with this fluid, and he realizes when he applies it to his skin, his penis, area around, he feels that ecstasy. So he bottles a little bit, and at home begins experimenting with it. And unfortunately, his wife I say fortunately or unfortunately, the timing is very unfortunate. His wife tells him that she's pregnant. And I believe at some point, I can't remember which character makes this clear to Jerry, whether he discovers it himself, Lisa does, or Mike does. But at some point around this time, it's made clear to Jerry, hopefully, that she's not having an affair, that this is a guy who's planning his birthday party. So, maybe we find it out. I don't remember if Jerry does or not, but if Jerry does, he doesn't care, doesn't register, doesn't believe it, whatever. And at this point, he's starting to get, just And he starts to get excited about the possibilities of sharing this stuff with his pregnant wife. Not because she's pregnant, but just it's just something different. And he's not really worried about how she feels about it, of course. A theme that will get more depressing. So he, applies it to himself, and he has sex with her, and at her urging, she doesn't know about the fluid. She just happens to walk in on him when he's starting to masturbate with it on her. And so they have sex, and it's pretty intense, but she feels like he's kind of disconnected, rushing it, treating her like a one-night stand. He's very into it, and he thinks she is into it. He can't really tell. Again, he's not really in touch with her emotion. That whatever bond between them is kind of broken down almost completely at this point, if not completely. He's obsessed with the experience and just seeing how the experience works in other settings, such as masturbating with the fluid, having intercourse with the fluid. Well, in no time, she miscarries the baby in the shower. It's rather bloody. You don't see any baby parts, fortunately. Jerry, meantime, is starting to develop this rash on his penis, which we don't see, and above it, up to his navel. It's itchy and bothersome, and he goes to a doctor under an assumed name. He goes to a doctor who says, if you're not going to tell me the truth, I can't help you, because Jerry's like, no, I'm actually having less sex than usual. And he's like, well, okay, are you masturbating way more than usual? And he's like, well, what do you think? With a cheese grinder? I mean, to get this? And of course, that's all the doctor has to go on. The guy's wearing his dick out, it looks like. I mean, this isn't like, I don't want to say it's uncommon. It's not unheard of by any stretch. I mean, it's happened to me a couple of times, and it's happened, worse to other people I've known. And it's rough. And you can get rashes down there too, and they're really rough. It's happened to me more than a couple of times, and it's pretty bad. So, this is the thing. He won't divulge. He won't give any kind of information that can help the doctor at all. He could have made up some story about he's jerking off with some new something soap or something. Anything that would enable maybe them to do a test or something, but he's too defensive. He leaves. He's pissed off at the doctor. The doctor gives him this prescription. He starts applying it to his penis and to his lower abdomen, and of course he's, in pain when he does that. He goes back to the box for another round, and it's very painful. He's trying to figure out what's up, and but he still ends up getting an ecstatic feeling, and it's distracted a bit by the pain, and then he starts to kind of approach the box again, and it seems like it's dried up a little, the the orifice, not completely, but he's trying to get more fluid out of it. And he's not sure what's happening, and he's starting to talk to it. And again, it's in a box. Now the box has a deadbolt lock on it. I should have mentioned that, hours ago, but it does, and it was never intended to be opened by Madame Zora or Yvonne. So he's like, I've got to open the box. So this is playing on a lot of things, like basket case. What's in the basket? My brother. Or what's in the box? And 7. It's actually taking both of those ideas and taking them to a much farther level, much more tasteless. So yeah, he goes and buys some of those, whatever you call them, break the lock things. I can't remember what they're called right now. I had a manager who locked my locker deliberately with one, because she thought some, executive was coming to inspect the lockers for security breaches, and she didn't know how to unlock it, and I didn't either. And I was like, you can't fucking do this. My bag's in there with my money and food and all this stuff. And so she used one of them. I didn't see her use it, but anyway, it's this big tool. So he does it, and then he's knocked out by the odor. So I thought, is something dead, or has the thing that's in it died? Well, it hasn't died. It has receded a bit. You don't see that, but that's a lot of this is almost mime-like, the way Jerry does the sex with the box, and the way they kind of tiptoe around actually showing what's in the box for a long time. But it's well done. It's well staged. It's believable angles. Yes, it's obviously obscuring it, but that's what horror used to be before it was super graphic and explicit. And don't get me wrong, I mean, other than the concept of this, the movie hasn't been graphic or explicit. I mean, you saw his wife's nipples, her breasts bare in their sex scene, and that's about it. The language is really the only thing that would be hard R. So again, is it extreme horror? Well, I think the idea is a turnoff to a lot of people, but it could be done humorously depending on what you find out of what's in the box. Well, that's not going to happen. It's not going to be humorous. It's not going to be humorous at all. And he finally reaches in and takes it out. So when we finally see this, it is a special effect, a prosthetic, much like Elmer in Brain Damage or Belial in Basket Case. I have a feeling Harrison Smith is, like myself and many others, a fan of Frank Henenlotter's brilliant work. And he takes it out. It's about this big, and it's kind of fleshy looking, sort of, but almost like bruised, like kind of purpley, and sometimes little lights sparkle underneath its skin. It doesn't seem to have any eyes. Now, of course, obviously, he's bluntly put, he's been fucking it, so it's got an orifice somewhere. One time when he puts it down on the side, it looks like there's a little curved in area, and I'm just going to assume that's probably where he's been inserting it. And maybe this thing is having some problems because he's been overdoing it. Like, he's probably fucked it more than all her other clients put together in like a couple of days. However many days this takes place, a week, maybe the whole movie takes place over maybe a week, I'm guessing, from the framing of the birthday subplot. And it's really horrific. It's weird, but it doesn't. Okay, so she's into the occult. There's a detective investigating this. Really good actor. He's a black actor. I forgot the name of the character, but he has a lot of interchanges with Yvonne about the situation at Zora's, and he can tell it's really a brothel, not just a fortune-telling booth. And he also, he figures out that the box has been stolen, like he doesn't know what's in the box. And the guy's telling him like nothing basically, but he is telling him that, karma will beset whoever killed Madame Zora and stole the box. Don't worry, because the detective's like, you don't seem very worried about it. And I don't think you killed her. So he's very cryptic. At one point, even as this case is beginning to develop, they find Lady Zora's body. They report it on the news, and they interview Yvonne. And on the news, he says, "You who did this, if you're watching this, come to me, meet me. You're sick. You have a problem. I'm the only one who can help you." Well, the place that the movie opened in is the favorite bar of Mike and Jerry. Now it's just Mike, because Jerry's off on this escapade of eroticism. And Mike's drinking alone. He sees that TV show and he's thinking, oh my God, that's where we went. Madame Zora's, and he's got the box. He's taken it. And only this guy can help him. So, shortly prior to this, we see he puts the little creature or whatever it is, because it's pulsing and breathing, and little, like I said, little lights kind of are coruscating under its little dome, like electricity almost. Very mild effect, very, very cool. It's very veiny and purplish, and he puts it in the shower. He feels like it's uncomfortable in the box. It's been there a long time, I'm sure, and he's talking lovey-dovey too. And basically, at this time, he's utterly obsessed and completely insane. Meanwhile, his wife gets the credit card statement, and he had paid with a credit card for his first week at that hotel. unfortunately. He was out of cash, but he was so desperate. You could tell when he did it, he was kind of, first thing that crossed my mind is his wife will see the credit card statement, and she does. And so now she begins thinking, she's already been suspecting he's having an affair. And she's not happy with the way he's been acting toward her. She's not happy with the sex they had that night and the vibe of it. And she's not happy about his reaction to the miscarriage, which was very kind of blasé. And then he kind of acts like he's super concerned, and you know, but it's really just an act. He's telling her what he wants to hear. He's telling her what she likes to hear. Probably things he's consoled her with many times over the years they've been married. I mean, this is a very relatable movie. The characters are very, these scenarios, as much as it's revolving around the fantastique. There's this very relatable human kind of urban domestic familial intimate human sexual resonance or familiarity to it to me, even though, you know, I don't work for an insurance firm and have a blonde scream queen wife. But the point is that I've known guys like Mike, I've known guys like Jerry, I've known women like Lisa. I've had questionable things on my credit card before, not with my wife, but with my dad. It was a porn site. I was piggybacking off his phone bill, which I had my modem plugged in with. You know, just things like that, and you're just like, these things happen to people. And of course, in Lisa's mind, it's all playing out like these are the classic, you know, things of an affair. So she goes to the hotel. She demands to come in, and he lets her in, and she goes smells the smell and is repulsed. And she's like, "That's her, isn't it?" And he's like, "I'm not having sex with another woman," which is true. I guess in his mind, he's having sex with a female bioorganism, and then that's where I got off track earlier. Is since Yvonne told the detective that Manzoor was deeply into the occult, I've mentioned that more than once. You know, my thought is this is some Lovecraftian kind of creature, you know, sex creature or a tribble like being, you know, like it could be anything like that. You know, I'm thinking a lot of Philip Jose Farmer's very transgressively alien sexuality laden works. That's the lines I'm thinking. Is it some kind of sentient female, you know, tribblish being that's function is to satisfy these men that come in there? Well, the truth is even much worse. That's a comforting fantasy. I mean, it is rooted in the occult and the supernatural, the answer to all this. But I wish it were so prosaic as what I just described, which to a lot of people isn't not prosaic, but it's not an uncommon idea. You know, has not been one in darker fantasy or science fiction or horror. So Lisa sees the thing in the tub and freaks out, and he comes behind her and he kills her, applies pressure to her neck until it snaps from behind. And the expressions on his face, it's like you can see that moment where he crosses over from, I'm just going to knock her out, I'm mad, she can't go near the thing, to I've got to put more into this and kill her. It's taken a while, and I got to try harder. And he does. And then things get even more kinky and out there, because he brings he starts talking, he ranges her corpse fully clothed, and the woman gives a very good dead performance, and talking her a little and taking the fluid, what he can get off the little thing, and that's not in the box anymore, and applying it to her, her breasts and her stomach, and then near her, between her legs, and then she bolts to life, and he kills her with the instrument that he broke the lock with. Pretty brutal. I mean, you don't see it impact into her. That's what he kills her with. And even then, she's still kind of laying around like this, and it's like, why is he experimenting? It's like he's using her body. It's like I thought he was going to perform necrophilia on her. I thought he was going to rub the stuff on him or in her vagina, and yeah, but probably in her vagina and fuck her. But he didn't expect her to zoom back to life, so that kind of like killed his. But you can tell, maybe I'm just a pervert, but just you're looking at his expressions and hearing things he's mumbling and seeing how he's checking things out, and it seems to be that was the direction he was headed in. So, just like when he fucked his wife with the stuff on his penis, he's using his wife as a vessel. He's objectifying her. She's a means to an end. She is not an end unto herself. So here we get into the deep, heavy misogyny and objectification kind of subtext, which is rising, higher and higher toward the surface. And it was kind of revelatory to me, really. And it brought me into another dimension of kind of resonance, but also repulsion and fear, and kind of depression, about not only this scenario and something that gross, but those kind of feelings that men have. I mean, I've had them before. They're not common in me. I don't walk around with them. But in my lifetime, have I had them? Yes. I'm sure every man probably has had sex with a woman, and there's a moment where he's not connecting with her. He's just thinking about something else, and he's getting off. A one-night stand, a prostitute. I'm not going to relate who and what mine was, but yeah, at least once that's happened, and all for me, it harkens back to the story, the collection by Philip A. Farmer called Father to the Stars, which is a collection of stories about this space roving priest called Father John Carmody, who on Earth was a criminal. His wife, he objectified her, and then she became pregnant, and he got neurotic about her stomach starting to stick out because he just saw her as an object. And then his wife pretty much tells him, you just used me as a superior instrument of masturbation. I always thought of that line. It's exactly what I thought of in this movie. Now, in the Father Carmody story, then he sees red and he kills her because she implies that the baby she's carrying isn't even his, that he isn't even all that manly. You kind of probably knew that was coming, and it's, I'm sure, true. And he cuts her into all the little pieces he possibly can and feeds them to garbage disposals and different things. It's Farmer. It's Farmer is the most graphic, and then he leaves Earth. Because in that era in the future, he doesn't have to just leave the state or the country. He can leave the planet, and becomes this faux priest and encounters weird beings. But Night of Light is the story, actually. And Night of Light was where the phrase purple haze came from, because Jimi Hendrix was a fan of that story that I'm describing himself. And there's a copy of the book Night of Light novella by itself in the Jimi Hendrix Museum in Seattle, Washington. It's very close, similar, it might be identical to the run of my mass market copy. I'm not sure, though. But it was from that same kind of era of really cool mass market paperback covers. And when I bought it at Pulp Fest 2014, I was like, wow, this is so awesome. And then it wasn't long after that I saw the footage of Hendrix's museum, and the Night of Light is there because Hendrix was a big Philip A. Farmer and science fiction fan, and particularly that story. And the purple haze is something that visits the people living on this planet, including Father John Carmody. And with him, it's pulling things out of his subconscious and manifesting them into flesh. And so it's his wife. But she doesn't have a soul. She's being manifested bit by bit, since the physical pieces, are sundered, and then they're all in his mind too, and from his mind they're manifested. It's pretty intense. The Night of Light is what it's called. It's like a ceremony, a ritual, a supernatural, cosmic happening on that planet. Anyway, I think talking about this is very relevant to this movie because to me it's very similar territory. sexual obsession and sexual revulsion. And there's a lot of that in Farmer's War, including the lovers. Open to Me, My Sister is one. There's, that stuff hit me at a young age. I was reading, I was not very socially developed at 14 at all. 14 is when I began reading Farmer, and by 15, I had read all the stuff I just mentioned too. And it's pretty heavy to me, But anyway, so he disposes of Lisa, and he goes back to the house, and he gets a package from a guy named Dick who's driving a truck, and he's bringing the birthday party stuff. And Jerry's just pretty much by this time a mean asshole to everybody. Everybody's just in his way, especially Lisa. Now she's out of his way of him and his obsession. And he wants to leave the hotel and go back to his house. And because now Lisa's gone, he can do it. He can frolic with the thing all he wants. He's fuck work, I don't care. Fuck hygiene, I don't care. And he just, his rash is spreading and growing. And I'm starting to think of Cronenberg and The Fly and Seth Brundle. And I was thinking in the right direction. It begins to go more in that kind of morphing direction of body horror, as whatever he's been exposed to is changing him. Whatever is in that fluid that brings him so much ecstasy, that's, that creature secretes and excretes. So again, I think, is it an alien or is it a magical creation? But in any case, it's something extra human that is making this happen. And why is it changing him? But I get the feeling from what Mike said, from probably Mike's just guessing, or from Zora and Yvonne's dialogue, that nobody but Jerry has ever had sex with this box, with this creature more than once. So once, I guess, is not enough to mess you up internally and externally. However, him having it on his penis, fucking his wife, did cause her to miscarry their child and have these intense pains in her abdomen. So Jerry doesn't care though. And he's still, he's like, I'm gonna have sex with it and blah blah blah. I mean, he doesn't say that, but that's in his mind, obviously. He takes the birthday decorations and decorates his house, blackens out his windows, and he's just gonna live as a hermit and fuck this thing. So he's all sweet and tender with it, and then he fucks it one more time. Not graphically, and again, he's in a lot of pain. But then he also goes into like the ecstasy mode, and it's kind of switched back and forth. And this actor, he's got it nailed, man. He's got the body language, the facial expressions. It's torturous. So we've crossed into this area of the supernatural, but we haven't, yet gone to its terminal point. And so Mike comes into his house while he's away. After he tells the birthday party guests who comprise him to get the fuck off my property. He sounds like some old man. He's like, yeah. And he's like, why'd you break into my house? Mike's like, you always leave the garage door open, man. Come on, man. You're my best friend. And he says, hey, I told you not to do this. If you killed Madame Zora, we'll cover it up, man. We'll make sure that you never get in trouble. You never get caught. You sweep all this under the rug and we'll start over. And, at this point, he thinks that Zora's the only one that Jerry's killed. And then he says something about where's Lisa? And he's like, Lisa got in the way, man. And Mike's kind of, light bulb over his head, not literally, is going off. And he's like, oh, Jerry. So that's the line crossed, because Mike and Lisa were friends. Jerry claims Mike just wanted to fuck Lisa. I don't know, given Mike's wolfish nature, that might be true, but that doesn't mean that they weren't also friends. That doesn't mean he wanted her to die or suffer a horrible fate just because he lusted after her, coveted her as neighbor's wife, so to speak. And He turns around to call the police, and Jerry grabs a grocery bag that's been sitting there, empty one, and he suffocates him. And it's a pretty intense scene. Again, he's really putting all. Jerry's not like superhumanly strong. He's in really fit shape, actually. He's not really cut, but he's kind of cut, and but he's still like straining. Obviously, killing people with your bare hands or your bare feet is not an easy thing, even for someone of his maybe mild strength to do. I mean, it takes a lot. And but he does. He finally Mike chokes out. This incredible shot of the bag all the way up, breathed in all the way into his throat almost. And a lot of great shots in this movie. And then he's kind of, by this time his rash is spread up here. It's getting kind of weird, and one of his teeth is getting loose. So again, I thought, well, obviously Seth Brundle, The Fly by David Cronenberg. Once again, this is where we're headed. This alien sex fluid is breaking him apart. Not sure why exactly, but we'll find out why. Not how, but why. And so he finally goes to Yvonne, and he's getting really sick, and he looks pretty rough, but he's not like the next stage Brundlefly, like the visit that Gina Davis visits the second time, like this, walking into canes. But he's getting there. That look, he's getting there, and his teeth are coming out, like the tooth is coming out, and he says, "You can help me. My friend told me," and Yvonne's like, "Okay, look, I will. I'll." And he's like, "What about it?" Because basically, what's prompted him to finally go is because after killing Mike, he sees that his lover is starting to shrivel up and darken and get drier still. And man, he's depressed. I mean, he's not sad over his best friend and wife, but man, he's grieving this thing. It's not quite dead yet. And then it kind of seems like it's dead when he brings it to Yvonne, and he's like, "Can you bring it back to life? Can you fix it? Can you help me?" And Yvonne's like, "You'll be with it soon. Everything will be okay." He speaks in this very, heavy Slavic accent and this very slow, deliberate intonation. So, he had established earlier while talking to the detective that he does a lot of woodwork, and it's implied that he's the one who built the box in the first place. And so he goes to work and builds the box from scratch, I guess in the basement of this place. Okay, so you got to think of how long would that take. He gets all the wood, he shapes it, he cuts it, the saw, he polishes it, he paints it black, and he writes the same thing on it. Stick it in here with the arrow, and he makes a perfect hole near the bottom of the front of the box. Exact duplicate of the other box. Now, mind you, that probably took a few hours. So, it's like waiting in the emergency room. It's kind of like when David Bowie went away to the hospital in The Hunger. And he's waiting so long, he starts to degenerate into an ancient man. Well, he degenerates into an ancient man because, his vampirism is seeping away. But I thought it was a good metaphor because sometimes I've felt like that. Like I'm waiting in the waiting room so long, I'll be dead by the time someone sees me. So this is kind of a mad parody, extreme of that, and that's when things go completely off the chain. And it's like, again, kind of like the end of The Fly, where suddenly, all at once, the metamorphosis is pushed to its final stage, rather than another gradual or incremental level. And so his hair falls out, his teeth fall out, his skin starts getting pustules, and and his bones seem to be kind of losing their solidity, and muscles losing their strength, and his skin is getting kind of jellyfishy and veiny and pink, like really like pink, but it's kind of almost like he's kind of a cross between Brundlefly and the Incredible Melting Man and some other horror movies you can probably think of, similar kind of makeup. And I thought, wow, okay, this is really going full tilt into like some old school 80s horror, man, like full out body horror shit. And so Yvonne comes in with a box, and by the time he's coming in with the box, Jerry's been screaming and flailing this whole time as his body's just falling apart and distorting, and his neck is starting to go over this way and stretch out. And as it starts to stretch out and kind of limp to the side, still kind of attached, maybe by a bone, maybe by one little bone, Avon reaches over and he pulls it. And when he pulls it, the stuff snaps like rubber snapping, like the effect in The Thing that Rob Bottin did, where the guy mimics the character, the creature mimics the character, and his head goes like that. And the effect was where they actually used the plastic coming apart, looking like plastic, but supposed to be flesh. And that makes it kind of more gross and surreal as it stretches and pops. You think if flesh did that. And you hear a snap and he breaks off that bone and he takes the head. And now, mind you, the eyes are kind of like this, kind of scrunched, but he's still kind of trying to blink and move his mouth a little and a muscle or two. So his head is not deceased. So obviously it's beyond this alien, it's some magic kind of thing, and it's totally fucked up. And have you guessed by now where this is going? I had. And I was afraid I was right. And I was. He puts his head into the box. And of course, as he's putting it in, he has no hair. He's putting it in, and still kind of like muscles are moving. He's still alive. Now, who knows what level of consciousness or sanity is in his brain or how mushed up his brain is. But he's replaced his great love. He's what's in the box. And if you think about the way he puts it in, he aligns the mouth, getting all distorted with that hole. So you go back to the glory hole idea. Now, there's a couple of other decisive lines that you can read as explaining this textually and subtextually. Right before Yvonne goes in to make the box, Jerry starts ranting, and he's like talking about how great it was, and they can go in business together, and all this just crazy off the wall, kissing his ass for help, and just ranting about how he needs it, and what he did with it, and he mentions, he's like, I put it on myself, and I put it inside my wife, and Yvonne's like, putting it inside of a woman, I never thought of that. I'm thinking, huh? And then, well, at first I thought, well, yeah, I guess it's a female creature. Maybe that's why. I don't know. And then he's like, she loved it. She loved it. And again, there you go, that disconnect. He's thinking his wife loved it the whole time, and you can tell she didn't, even if she didn't know what was up. And then he's ranting some more, and they start talking about, he starts talking about his prostitutes and females, and Jerry's like, females, who cares about females? He's like, it's men. Men are who come here. Men are who need the satisfaction. We've been given our satisfaction. That's all that matters. And I'm like, okay, so they've totally gone into like breaking the wall to where they've shattered that motherfucker, and you kind of see what this movie is a commentary on, which several things, which I've mentioned before, some at the beginning of this video. And so now Jerry becomes the orifice, the man orifice, in which all these other men will come and get their satisfaction. Who cares about females? Until he withers up and is used. So he is some magic. It's like a magic karmic spell meant to punish, I guess, men like this, and to apply the karma, and which that's where we were at in the beginning. The karma was, you fucked this woman because your wife fucked this guy. And really it's like, Jerry didn't seem like that kind of guy. If anything, Mike seemed like the kind of guy who would be misogynistic, but you realize Jerry had this inside him all along and it had never come out. And maybe it could turn any man into this. Maybe it could capture your reptile brain and just fight or flight or fight or fuck, and fuck becomes the permanent mode and you don't care what you're fucking, and so you have to shore yourself of this veneer of humanity where you interact socially or interact romantically, and you need to slough off that skin and you're just becoming pure, like a pure phallus. You're thinking completely with your dick, literally, and that's all that matters. And it's also that ecstasy. And the fact that these are characters who can't intellectually articulate, except maybe I'm Madame Zora, but she died early, can't articulate these ideas, that makes it even more interesting. Because you don't have a character who describes the ecstasy like I did. You don't have the character who talks about these feelings, the way I did. And I haven't read a single review of this movie yet, and I did that on purpose because I wanted to deliver this to you as it was delivered to me. Innocent, unsuspecting viewer. So anyway, I'm now sullied and scarred and marked for life. It's very disturbing. Very disturbing indeed. Anyway, if you don't mind spoilers and you haven't seen it by now, see it. If you have seen it, share your thoughts with me, because I'm gobsmacked, as the Brits would say. So, thanks for listening. I'm glad to be back with Blue Review. Glad to be tackling these kind of deep, fucked up movies and stories, because it's really a passion of mine. Take care.